Welcome back to another episode of Critical Hit, everyone. Today's conversation is what I've truly been looking forward to. We're closing out season 2 with the powerhouse guest Sara Nay, CEO of Duct Tape Marketing and author of Unchained: Breaking Free from Broken Marketing Models. Sara has spent over a decade helping small businesses and marketing professionals regain clarity, confidence, and control by shifting away from the old agency dependency mindset and towards what she calls an anti-agency model, a model rooted in strategy, ownership, and true partnership. In this episode, we dive into what's broken in traditional marketing relationships, how business owners can take back ownership of their marketing, the evolution of the fractional CMO role, and how AI is reshaping leadership inside small businesses, not replacing it, but elevating it. It's conversation packed with insight, experience, and practicality. So grab your coffee, or in my case, I swear it's not Guinness drink, and let's jump into our season finale with Sara Nay. All right. Thank you very much for being with us today, Sara.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you. Sara, you began at Duct Tape Marketing as an intern in 2010 and eventually you became a CEO. How has seeing almost every role inside the agency shaped the way you think about marketing today?
It's been a journey, that's for sure. And a lot has changed, obviously, in the last 15 years when it comes from a marketing standpoint. But really, when I started at Duct Tape Marketing as an intern, I didn't know much about marketing. I was still learning if this was even a path I wanted to take. And then I evolved into all different roles in our company. So I was working on implementation. I was an account manager. I was helping run our community. I eventually graduated to more of a fractional CMO type of role and COO. And now I'm in the CEO role. And so I've learned all the different ways to support clients through that experience. But I've also learned a lot about marketing our own business as well through that experience. And so I've grown, I've learned a lot over the years. And I think that's one of the things that's really exciting about marketing is it is changing and evolving so quickly, especially since AI has entered the picture. And so I think if you're in the marketing space, you have to be growth minded. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to shift and change and try new things and experiment. So I've really enjoyed doing that over the last 15 years.
Fantastic. And, a bulk of the conversation today is surrounding the concept of anti-agency. So before we get started, after working with the hundreds of small businesses and mentoring marketing consultants, what patterns do you notice that convinced you that maybe a traditional agency model is breaking or has broken already?
Yeah, and I talk a lot about the anti-agency model, and I always like to clarify before I dive in. I'm not saying agencies are bad. We are an agency ourselves. We have been an agency for 31 years. And so when I say anti-agency, it's not agencies are bad. It's the model. There's a lot that's challenging and broken in the model, I believe. And so that comes from my years of experience being in an agency, but also speaking to, you said hundreds, I would say thousands of business owners over those 15 years, and hearing their challenges and hearing their struggles and hearing their stories of being taken advantage of. And so I posted recently on LinkedIn a couple stories actually that help paint this picture a bit more. There was one company that I spoke with. He was a prospect considering moving forward with us, and he's been paying an SEO company $8,000 a month. And I looked at his traffic. I think he's getting like 47 visitors per month on his website, something incredibly low. And he's locked into a 3-year contract with them. He has no idea what they're doing. They're sending him reports every single month that seem like a foreign language to him, but he's locked into this 3-year commitment because he didn't really know what he was buying ultimately. He didn't fully understand SEO, and he just knew that he needed to be doing SEO, and this company promised him the world. So I hear stories like that all the time. I posted about another story, and I've heard this a couple times recently, where someone was paying $10,000 a month for ads management. But again, the agency owned the ads account, and they owned all of the data, and the client didn't even have access to any of that stuff. And the client had no idea how much of their $1,000 a month was going towards ads and how much was going through to the agency for the management fee. Had absolutely no idea, but they felt stuck as well because they're like, well, if we leave this agency, we basically have to start over from ads. And I'm like, well, are you even getting results? And they're like, I don't know. And so I hear stories like this, unfortunately, all of the time. And I think a lot of the issues are that people in the small business space don't understand how to purchase marketing in a lot of scenarios. They don't understand the strategy behind it, but they know they need to be doing it. And so they start working with an agency. The agency might be taking advantage of them, might not, but the agency is really keeping everything they're doing kind of behind closed doors and then reporting to them. And in that sense, you're losing control of your marketing, and you're also not building an asset that you own long term. And so I believe the appropriate way to work with small businesses is more of a partnership than an outsourced delegation. So I believe agencies should be coming in, they should be working with the small business to understand the business strategy. They should be creating a marketing strategy together, and then they should be executing with transparency. And so they should be using the client's ads accounts, and they should be using the client's website that they get access to, and they should be communicating exactly what they're doing and when and why it's making a difference, and educating the clients along the way. And so that's a better relationship than simply delegating something and hoping your phone rings, which a lot of people unfortunately do.
Yeah, yeah. And this is I guess, a good segue to maybe dive in a little bit more in depth about this conversation, because in your book Unchained, you also talk about broken marketing models. Is this what you described? Is that the biggest failure of the traditional agency approach, or is there something that even, surpasses that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that's broken, but the biggest thing I see is when agencies are, again, they're owning the accounts versus the client owning accounts on
Mhm.
whatever it is, website, paid, whatever it is. So that's one big challenge. Also, the whole reporting issue with agencies. There's a lot of agencies that are reporting, we call it vanity metrics. So just high level, you're getting traffic to your website. Look at all of this, but it's like, well, the client's over there saying, well, I'm not actually getting revenue for that. And
Mhm.
so that's another huge challenge, is I think the full story of reporting, being able to say, yes, you got website traffic, and then this many people filled out your form, and then many people actually paid, and it turned into this much revenue, which means it's this much for a customer lifetime value. And so again, that's just an example of how an agency and a small business need to collaborate to be able to come together to tell all of those pieces of the story. And so that's another example. I would say the two biggest issues really are account ownership and then transparency and reporting and results. But there's more. But those are the two biggest ones that I talk about most frequently.
Yeah. I think part of it is, maybe this is a misconception with agencies, that agencies have to do more because there's a certain outsourcing aspect to it, value to the dollars, or maybe the agencies feel pressure to do more faster and be always reactionary to the customer's request. Majority of these times, there is no I apologize, strategy tied to the executions, and everything is just vanity metric, to your point.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times too, that's one scenario. I absolutely agree. There's a lot of pressure on agencies to be able to offer everything. And then also shiny object syndrome is a massive challenge for
Mhm.
agencies and also the small businesses. And so even if someone's put a strategy in place, like often the client will get another idea and then they'll go down this rabbit hole and then they'll get their veer off the path of the strategy they created. So yes, all of the time, but there's also a challenge where a lot of agencies specialize in certain things. And so another story I've heard, actually a client of ours right now, where we're creating an overall marketing strategy for him. That's where we always start. He invested in a company that promised that he was going to sell a ton of money using email marketing. And so they're like, this is what you need. This is the platform you need. This is all of our success stories. This is what we can do for you. But he didn't even have a list to email to at this point. Like, he hasn't spent the time. So the agency came in as like, they're an email marketing agency and they believe it works for absolutely everyone. And so there's also agencies that are leading with tactics like that, not understanding who's his ideal client, what's the message that resonates with them, what does his list look like, what is he doing from a marketing perspective. Like, you have to understand all of those things before you can dive into a channel like email marketing. And they skipped all of those
Okay.
things and promised the world with email marketing. So that's also an issue is tactics before strategy.
So we talked about, and by the way, not a segue, but a notification for those that are watching this podcast. I'm keep on taking a sip of this. This is, I swear to God, coffee. I'm not drinking Guinness while we are on this fantastic conversation. So don't judge. But as we are talking about, we talked about the agency side. We talked about, some of the misconceptions or, the failures or mistakes with the agency side. Are there misunderstandings of the business owners when it comes to treating these marketing agencies?
Yeah, because a lot of times what the business struggles with is they skip the business strategy piece. And they know they need to do marketing. And so then they'll just go out and find these partners that can help them with marketing. But they've skipped over like the two most important steps, which is creating the business strategy. So what are you trying to accomplish as a business? What's your current revenue? Where do you want to be in 1 year and 3 years? What's your mission, vision, values? You have to understand all of that before you can say, okay, now what do we need to do from a marketing perspective? And that's where you can then start working on the marketing strategy piece. And that includes things like where your current marketing is today, competitive research, ideal client profiles, core messaging, customer journey, content strategy, execution calendar, growth priorities. Like those are the components that we typically include in a marketing strategy. And then you can say, okay, now we know what we're going to do. Now we can say, who can help us do this? Is it hiring internal team? Is it finding partners? Is it working with an agency? But you really have to put the work in to create the strategy to then determine who can help. And in creating a marketing strategy, there is, it's a very specific process in a lot of cases. And so if you're listening to this and you're a business owner, you're like, okay, I don't have a marketing strategy in place, nor do I have marketing experience, then you can look for a fractional CMO or someone along those lines that can come in and help you create that strategy and then also help you answer the question of who can get the work done. Because that's a lot of businesses, unfortunately, do it backwards. They'll bring in solution and then have them figure out what they're going to do. But again, they haven't done the business and marketing strategy to guide those solutions, which causes just a lot of complication in forms of marketing.
I also, on my end, I work with a lot of startups where, someone has a great idea. And then from that ideation to execution, they focus on the wrong things, at least in my opinion. They say, okay, I have a product, and I gotta go rent an office. And somewhere in between, to your point, the value, the user value proposition, the mission, the vision, and everything else is gonna be neglected. So specifically for the startups or those that are starting their journey into the new venture, what would be the necessary steps in your opinion, to go from ideation to, where we gotta set up our values, and to what is the telltale sign that now I have to go and hire a fractional CMO and I can't do this on my own?
Yeah. So for just getting started, it really is answering some of those questions that I rattled off earlier. Where are you currently from a revenue standpoint? Where do you want to be in 1 year and 3 years from now? And then what do you need to do over the next quarter to start moving in that direction? Like that's where I would start first. But also on top of that, before you start moving in that direction, you do need to understand, what is the company trying to accomplish? What do you want to be known for? What's your mission, vision? What are your values? Because that should help shape everything moving forward. Your values should help shape how you serve clients and communicate with clients and communicate with your team, and even who are you going to hire. Like every time we hire someone new, we start with making sure their values match before we get into anything else. And so that is important foundational work to do from the very beginning. As you said, not most people, but a lot of people skip over all of that and they'll just go straight into, and then they have to like scramble and take steps back to get that stuff in line because it's getting complicated fast. And so starting there, I think is a really important piece. And then to your question on when do we know it's time for a fractional CMO, it really just depends on the individual business. We serve as fractional CMOs to our clients, and usually we're working with clients that are in the 3 to 40 million revenue range. I think that's a great revenue range to start thinking about a fractional CMO. If you're much smaller than that, you might not need that investment yet. You can do a lot internally in-house, but once you're getting to that growth above 3 million and you're wanting to really scale up, and then beyond 40, you might be looking at bringing a CMO in-house at that point, to manage your team. But it is a number of factors. It's just not across the board because it depends on industry and size and who's on the team and all of those things. But where I see a lot of small businesses struggle is the founder started a business because they're passionate about something, and now all of a sudden they're the founder, they're the CEO, they're the CMO, they're the all of the things. They don't really have experience in marketing. They didn't get into business to become a marketer, and so
Hmm.
they're having to be. And so if you're feeling like you're being pulled in too many directions right now as a leader, bringing in a fractional CMO is a good solution to help really run the marketing part of your business because they're seasoned, they're experienced, they can bring the strategy, they can take a lot of the management of the people off of your plate. So you can focus on where your highest payoff activities are as a CEO, which is, thought leadership and whatever it might be for your individual business.
Fantastic. And this is, putting myself in the client's shoes because, you know, I've seen this where the founder is going to start saying, okay, well, we are operating out of a garage. We're small. We are
Yeah.
trying to, operate lean. And they start investing those astronomical, budgets that you mentioned, 8,000, 10,000, 8,000 for SEO was unheard of. I'd never heard that before in my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
But but ultimately that money is something that, that can be considered waste because, it's not leading to anything. And to some extent, as a new founder, you have the wiggle room to have that trial and error. But what I'm trying to say is, okay, well, as a founder that wants to invest either to a point person that can take on all of that and kind of lead with it versus take that money and internally invest it into whatever they see fit for their business. How would you convince this owner to make that investment into that one individual instead of multiple different channels of marketing, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And I don't know if I really would until we created the strategy for a business ultimately, because it really just depends on what the business is trying to accomplish. What are their growth goals? Who's their target market? Where do they hang out online? What should their customer journey look like? What are their products and services? What are the buying site? So there's just so many factors that goes into who needs to be on the team. And
Mhm.
so you really have to create that marketing strategy initially. So when we start with clients, we always start with an initial 30 to 45 day engagement where that's what we do. And then at the end of the engagement, we have the full plan mapped out, able to say, okay, you need this person, and this person based on your specific plan. So it really just depends on what's included in the marketing strategy to say who's going to get the work done. But again, where a lot of businesses struggle, to your point, is they'll say, okay, I'm going to have this person run my paid, this person run my SEO, this person run my social or whatever it might be, this person run my email. And all of a sudden they have all these different people working in silos. And then all of a sudden their branding is completely inconsistent. Their customer experience is completely inconsistent because one person's doing one thing and the next person's doing the next, and it's scattered. And so regardless the size of your business, if you're in startup mode or if you're, doing millions in revenue, you need to have someone in the marketing leadership role. You don't need to call them a fractional CMO if that feels too big at this point, but you need to have someone that is sitting in your company that is overseeing the strategy, overseeing the budget, overseeing the metrics, understanding what's working and not working, and then making quarterly plans for marketing moving forward.
Got it. Moving to the concept of anti-agency, what does that definition? What is the definition of anti-agency to you?
Yeah, and so we mentioned this a little bit earlier with the
Yeah.
anti-agency model. Again, it's
Mhm.
just so it's you got to include the model piece, and so it's
The
not
model,
that
yeah.
yeah. So it's not that agencies are bad. Again, we're an
Right.
agency. We certify and train agencies. We have for the past 16 years. We love agencies, but it's
Mhm.
again, it's that point that the model is broken. And so it's painting the picture of instead of just outsourcing and delegating, it's forming relationships with the outsourced solutions, but approaching them more as a partnership with collaboration and transparency and working on things together versus, again, just simply delegating. And so that term is really just calling out what we talked about earlier in this episode, all the things that are really broken in the model specifically.
And then for the fractional CMO system over at Duct Tape, it's there is a refinement over the decades, and I want to see what inspired that sort of refinement in the model from a typical fractional to what it is currently today.
Yeah. So we are a bit different than your traditional fractional CMO. A lot of people in the fractional CMO space, maybe they work with 2, 3 clients and they're committing to a certain amount of hours. Maybe they're giving them like a day and a half of their time every single week, and that's what you get. And so that model works for some people. We're just a little bit different. When we work with clients, we call it fractional CMO plus. And so what we do is we come in and we create the initial plan over the 30 days, as I was talking about. And then we go into a retainer where we're not committing to a certain amount of hours that you get from our team, but what we're committing to is the value that we're going to provide. We also have the plus at the end of fractional CMO because we have a full agency team. So we can help our clients hire in-house marketers if that's what they need for their stage of business. Or we can help them hire contractors if that's what makes sense. Or if they're just not interested or not at that point in their business, we have people on our team that can do things like websites and SEO and content production for our clients. A little bit different than your traditional fractional CMO model where we're promising value and we can bring our team to actually execute on our clients' behalf as well.
Very nice. There is the moving to discussion of, I'm sure it's on everybody's mind these days, the big AI. There is a lot of shift in marketing because of AI. I mean, there's a big shifts across the board where who would have thought that you could just, create an app in 10 minutes,
I know.
right? It's crazy to me that I was able to witness all the way from dial-up to, where we are today.
Yeah.
But moving away and getting serious on the concept of AI with the agency model, I feel like AI does a very good job of amplifying whatever exists inside a business. So would AI kind of help make certain mistakes that our agencies are making today with the businesses more transparent for the business owners?
It's a good question. Yes and no. I think in my experience with AI over the last couple of years is people were really excited about AI and they were talking about how marketers were going to be replaced and we don't have a career path moving forward and they're going to fire everyone and they're going to bring in AI to just do marketing. And I think what's happened is it's proven to be really challenging to do that well. I think AI is an incredibly powerful solution, but it takes a lot of time and focus to do it well. And so what I see is a lot of small businesses bringing in AI platforms like a ChatGPT and then just cranking out generic marketing plans or generic content. If you go on LinkedIn, it's all over the place. People are now posting, every single day, and you can tell it's a copy and paste out of ChatGPT. And then to make matters worse, they're using AI to comment on the posts as well. And you can see right away that it's AI, an incredible platform. We use AI. I use AI every single day. ChatGPT is always open on my computer. But in order to use AI effectively for marketing is I would say substantial training that needs to go in on the front end into a ChatGPT on your business, on your brand, on your ideal clients, like hours and hours of sales recordings, calls, and stuff like that needs to go into ChatGPT first so it can understand your business to then be able to help you craft content or do whatever moving forward. And so I think of AI as an assistant to humans at this point. We do strategy, as I said, for our clients. And now with AI, we have more access to research and information than we've ever had before at a faster rate. And so it's helping us create better strategy for our clients. But at this point, we're not necessarily spending less time on the strategy we're creating. We're just creating better work because we have information that we now can sift through that we didn't have before. And so I think if you approach AI as we're not going to be able to go replace everyone on our team at this point until agents actually can perform at the level that people are saying they will be able to. At this point, I think of AI as, okay, what are we currently doing on a consistent basis? How can we elevate the work that we're doing? How can we elevate the humans so they can focus on their strengths and delegate their weaknesses to AI? And I think if you think about it that way, it's an incredible opportunity at this point.
Is there a the going back to the amplification of the effort?
Yeah.
Because going back to the example for SEO agencies, I've seen some SEO agencies that use, for example, to your point, ChatGPT to build out blogs and articles or generic content. There are even these platforms like I'm not going to name names, but there are actually platforms that are spitting out, the hundreds or thousands of articles a month using AI, and they're essentially the mission of the company is that we are going to boost your SEO with this all-in solution, AI solution. Now, going back to the business owner tackling that, is there when you come in as a leader, do you think there is a way to battle this, or in a way kind of set up checks and balances using AI to make sure if the effort is really going to be fruitful for the company or not?
Yeah.
It was a
It's interesting.
long-winded question. I
Yeah.
apologize.
No, it's an interesting question. It actually brings up a short story. We've had a client for about 10 years now at this point, and they
Wow.
recently reached out to me and said they were going to leave us and go to another agency, and they shared the agency's name. And I looked at their website, and it appeared to be one of the agencies you potentially were talking about, where it was like, we're going to just do mass amounts of AI content. And they were very forward. They're like, we're going to do mass amounts of volume of content. We're going to automate all your Google business responses with AI. It was like all of this stuff. And so I just said to this client, I was like, you've been working on this for 10 years. I'm not trying to talk you out of it, but I also would advise you, I would be careful moving forward with an agency that is just automating everything that you do with AI and taking humans out of the picture, because people can see right through that. They actually came back to me. They're like, okay, but we respect you, but we're going to move forward. And then they came back to me last week and were actually like, we had a terrible onboarding experience. They overpromised what they were actually going to do. Will you take us back? And so I just caution, like, again, AI is an incredible tool when used with humans. But if agencies are out there and they're just using AI and taking humans out of the equation, there's just no quality control, and people don't want to experience just AI generated content and experiences throughout the whole entire process. But to your question, in terms of, can small businesses detect or be able to, if they're using a company or an agency that's doing AI generated content, it's hard because right now AI or detectors, you'll put into something that's 100% human and they'll say it's in AI generated, or you'll put into something that's AI generated and it will tell you, like, so the detectors aren't really there. But I think there are some telltale things that you can look for if an agency is writing content on your behalf. I mean, is it generic? Is it speaking directly to your target audience? Is it using like the sentence structures that typically AI does? Is it repetitive like AI is? Like, so there's things that you can start to do to recognize AI content, but I think the detectors aren't that great today as it stands. And I think the biggest rule of thumb that you can look at if you're working with an agency that's creating content on your behalf is it in my tone of voice? Is it in my writing style? Is it speaking directly to the people I would speak to? Are these points I would make? And so you just need to analyze, like, is this content something that you want representing your company, and would you have it representing your company? And if not, then you push back on the agency with specific feedback on this is why it's missing the mark.
hmm And then for the that was a great story, and it maybe is a good time to ask my last question about AI. But to the story that you were describing, if a company decides to go with a all-out automated solution, especially when it comes to AI content, no matter how good it is, I think it's still amplification of the same idea, the
Yep.
repetitive going around in a circle within a market. So, and then, when it comes to something like SEO, it was supposed to be something that every piece of content had one unique value that at least was topping the other, topping the other content, whether that was an article, video, or something else. What is the is there even a value to, like, is there a success if everybody decides to go and use AI content in the future?
I think if people are approaching content creation using AI with their own thoughts on the front end and they're using AI to refine it a bit more, then I think that's okay. I think the problem is a lot of people are skipping that front end step. So
Hmm.
then they're just getting that generic content. And so for us, like when we're creating content for clients, for example, we work with a lot of people that they've been in the space for a long time, whether they're in HVAC or they're a thought leader and author and they've written books, thoughts on their industries and perspectives to give. And so whenever we work with clients, like we'll get on a Zoom kind of like this and we'll interview them and we'll ask them a bunch of questions on things that their clients are out there or prospects are out there searching for. We'll get their responses. We take that and then we will use AI to help us turn that transcript into different forms of written content, but it's all based on their ideas, their insights, their thoughts. And so I think when you approach AI that way, it's your information on the front end, using AI as an assistant to help you repurpose that content into different formats, and then editing on the back end. It's a really powerful way to be able to produce more content on more channels at a faster pace than you ever have before. But if you're skipping all of those steps and you're just going into AI and you're saying, write me a blog post on this topic, it is going to be generic stuff that anyone could put out, and it's going to be what other people are saying in your industry as well.
You often talk about, 3 points, which are clarity, confidence, and control of the
Yeah.
outcomes of the system. Which one do you think business owners struggle with most when they come to you?
Well, they all are so connected, but a lot of them don't have the clarity as to what should we be doing from a marketing perspective and also what's working and what's not working. And so
Mhm.
all the time I hear from people that, they're spending money on all of these different channels and they really don't know what kind of results they're getting because they don't understand how to set up the tracking. And so in that scenario, clarity is the root issue, but it's causing lack of confidence and lack of control. And so if you have clarity in terms of what's working and what you should be doing, that's where you then gain the areas of confidence and control. So really understanding what you should be doing from a marketing perspective is step one. And then on a quarterly basis, understanding what's working, what's not working, where do you need to shift your initiatives is an ongoing part of the puzzle.
Fantastic. 2 rapid fire questions. Are you ready for them?
I'm ready for it.
All right. What is one marketing belief that you wish every business owner would let go of?
This one I think is more common now is we have to be doing more. We have to be on more channels. We have to be on more touch points. And I think that a lot of people are getting really overwhelmed with that. And so they're doing all of these things not that well. And so oftentimes you can be more effective on marketing by simplifying and doing fewer things, but doing those fewer things really well because they can take more of your focus. And so less is often more when it comes to marketing.
If you had whether you're talking to a marketing intern or someone that has been in marketing for a long time and they're ready to develop new skills, what should they prioritize in the AI?
Yeah. Strategy and leadership, creativity, understanding data and metrics. Like those are the areas that I would focus on right now. I talk a lot about how people aren't necessarily entering marketing as executors. They're entering marketing as managers to some extent because they're managing AI systems in a lot of cases. And so no longer, it's interesting, people are entering the workforce no longer writing all of their copy from scratch. They're entering the workforce using AI to assist them along the way. And if you're managing AI or if you're managing human communication, systems and processes, delegation, creativity, like all of that stuff is really important to focus on right now. So higher level strategy leadership is where I would focus on.
Fantastic. How important is it to read books these days?
So important, I think, but I'm a book reader. Going to be a thing of the future because you can get access to so much information so much quicker. But I love books. I'm able to listen to them when I listen to books and I actually read them. But I listen to books when I'm driving in the car. And so, I think that's still a really important avenue if you have downtime like driving, if you commute, that's a really great opportunity to be able to listen to content and to continue to learn and grow. So I'm a believer in books. I think people are getting impatient and want information faster. And if you're in that situation, you can always go to ChatGPT and ask people to summarize and ask it to summarize books and get the most important points. But I think truly listening and understanding what resonates with you most in the whole entire book is something that ChatGPT can't do for you.
Absolutely. I think it also, I shouldn't complain as a marketer, I guess, but, with things like social media, Instagram, our attention span is just becoming shorter and shorter and shorter. And so, reading books is definitely going to be helpful.
But if you listen to it, you can listen to it on 2 times speed, and then you can just take it in as fast as possible. That's what I do, at least.
Exactly. Helps with the listening too.
Yes, it does. It does. You have to focus that way.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time, Sarah.
Thank you.
For the listeners who want to learn more about Unchained, the fractional CMO Plus system, or duct tape marketing, or anything else, now it's your chance to speak directly to the audience, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So I appreciate you having me on. If you're listening and you're interested in learning more about Unchained, my new book, you can just go to unchainedmodel.com. And then also our company is ducttapemarketing.com. We support small business owners as fractional CMOs, as we talked about, but we also certify and train marketing consultants, agencies, and fractional CMOs as well.
Fantastic. Good to have you. And I'm going to put all the links to Sarah's material in the description below, wherever that below is going to be, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you want to have it. And that wraps up the episode and officially wraps up the season 2 of the Critical Hit Show. A huge thank to Sara Nay for joining us to share so much experience, wisdom, and clarity. If you want to learn more about her work, her book Unchained, or Duct Tape Marketing, you'll find all of the Sarah's information linked in the description of this episode, whether you're going to be listening on YouTube, Spotify, or any of the podcast platforms. And to you, my lovely listeners, thank you. Seriously, this season we hit 731 subscribers on YouTube and over 500 downloads across podcast platforms. Thank you for finishing this year strong with me. Thank you for sticking around through all the ups, downs, ideas, experimentations I had, and all the great conversations that shaped the season 2 of the Critical Hit. We're taking a short break for the holidays, but we'll be back in January, stronger, sharper, and even with more exciting episodes, more guests, and more insights to help you lead, build, and grow. Happy holidays to you and your loved ones, and as always, thank you for being part of the Critical Hit community, and I see you next year.